Do you like animation? I love animation. I grew up watching cartoons, and to this day, I think it's my favorite medium through which to tell a story. Unfortunately, Cartoon Network is dead, Nickelodeon hasn't been good for like 10 years, and Disney is Disney. As human beings, we're going to continue to invent new ways to create art. At first, we would just tell stories around a campfire, then we'd write them down, then we'd draw them on the walls of the caves we lived in. We invented plays, novels, films, comic books, animation, video games, but nothing in life is free. So if you want to make a piece of art, you're going to need funding. And if you need funding, you need an investor. And eventually, when a medium of storytelling gets old enough, the profit becomes more important than the creative expression. It's just simple business. That's why we see projects that are incredibly important to the people who work on them and the people who watch them being shit-canned because they're slightly too expensive to include in a corporate merger, and for no other reason. That's why for most of my life, webcomics have been my preferred form of media. They're far enough off the main track of entertainment that it's really, really hard to monetize them, which means if you're making it, it's a passion project. And you know how I feel about passion projects! It's also why I like web series. Animated web series are really hard to find. There's just not really an easy way to advertise them, especially because YouTube is a terrible website to navigate if you're looking for a specific kind of media, because the algorithm knows what you want, of course. Don't even question what you want to watch. Just click on the first thing in your recommended feed. Anyway, as a connoisseur of web series, here is a few that I love, and either you haven't seen or only saw recently because they're new. Because I'm sure you've heard of Camp, Red vs. Blue, Ed's World, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. But we're beginning to enter a renaissance of YouTube animation after the late 2010s absolutely destroyed them. Now we're getting a lot of creative young individuals who watched that original era making their own shit, and it's really, really exciting, and I want to talk about it. So here's some of those things that I wanted to talk about. Autodale is a cool idea that got out of hand. 6 years ago, 2017, the first video came out. It's called Being Pretty. I remember watching this. Fucking hell, how old was I? I was 15 years old. I was in high school. It's a story about a dystopia. I'd been reading 1984 and Brave New World in school, and I was like, yeah, I get it. Everyone has to wear masks, and either you're pretty or you're ugly, and if you're ugly, you get fucking killed. You know, I ate it up. I was edgy. What really interested me most, though, was that it was 3D animation using cell shading to sort of look 2D Wind Waker style, and as fucking prolific as that is today, it was actually really rare back in 2017. Was it perfect? No, it was honestly kind of clunky. But ever since I watched that, I kept up with the series, and it grew into something I never could have expected. It became good. Unthinkable, I know. Over the next 4 years, David Armsby, the guy who made the series, made 6 more episodes, each one getting more and more impressive in its animation and art design, and becoming more and more interesting with its plot, lore, and characters. There's no main character, per se, it's a series of anthologies set in the same city and world, but where Being Pretty paints a very two-dimensional image of a dystopian society. By the time you get to the end, there's a lot of questions that are left unanswered, and a lot of pieces of this world that you want to know more about that you don't necessarily get to know, at least not in the animated series itself. He also has a making of video for each and every episode that delves into the themes, the ideas, and the creative process, which is interesting and worth watching. But this video is recommending animated series, and the animated series itself is, in a word, very interesting. You don't necessarily have a hero to root for, or a larger plot line to follow a arc of, but as the world unfolds and you learn more and more, you're drawn in and you're curious. And I enjoy the experience of being pulled into a world. And slowly but surely, Autodale does that very well. Especially considering this is a project made by one man, just obsessively putting his heart and soul into realizing this world over years of his life. I think it's definitely worth the time exploring that world.
Every day is like my birthday. Every way I've got to treasure the moment.
Where the fuck do I start with Dudes of Hazmat? First off, they're the reason I made this video. I watched this series and I was like, God damn, I love web series. And then I went and watched a bunch more, which contain most of the rest of this list. There's so much going on with this weird little show, whether it's the fact that all the voice acting sounds like it was recorded by a guy who was sitting in a closet trying to not wake up his sleeping wife, to the fact that all of the walk cycles look really, really bad, but also make me laugh so hard my stomach hurts, or the fact that it sort of reminds me of that, like, early 90s limited animation style they used with like Scooby-Doo and Johnny Test and Space Ghost. But at the same time, it's a lot more effort intensive at some points, but really bad at other points. It reminds me of Newgrounds a little bit. It potently has the feeling of being a strange experimental Adult Swim cartoon. And those have historically been some of my favorite animated series of all time. Unfortunately, Adult Swim has completely lost that avant-garde bullshit feeling that it used to have in the old days. I'm talking Xavier Renegade Angel, Home Movies, Venture Brothers, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Mike Tyson Mysteries. All this weird bullshit that they would experiment with. Sometimes it would be good, sometimes it would be terrible. Sometimes I would love it, sometimes I would hate it, but it was always exploring something new, and it always was rough around the edges, and that specifically is what made me love Adult Swim. It's also why I have a playlist on my YouTube channel at the very bottom, in a category called Cheshire Approved Content. I have a playlist called Free Range Adult Swim, which is just full of a bunch of random animations that I found on YouTube that I like. Some are memes, some are indie pilots, some are fan projects. It doesn't really matter to me. I just like putting things out there for other people to see, like I am now. So if you don't get enough out of this recommendation video, go watch the playlist. There's plenty of bite-sized things to enjoy there. Why did I take this tangent in the middle of the Dudes of Hazmat recommendation review thing? It's because this show is too much. I couldn't explain it all. I couldn't encapsulate why I enjoyed this show, because it's not one big thing. This isn't one big show. This is a massive amount of tiny little touches, tiny personal things that you'll come to appreciate about this show through the watching of it. At the very beginning, you may not even like it very much, but by the end, if you're anything like me, you'll be very, very endeared to the world that you have just witnessed, the characters that you've just followed, and it'll be just as hard for you to explain why. So, if you trust my taste, give it a shot. The series is called Vouch for a Reason. I'm gonna make this next recommendation really fucking short, because they do not need my help. I am not signal boosting. Their first episode of their newest series has 88 million goddamn views. They don't need me. But anyway, there's a YouTube channel called Glitch, and they seem to be a independent animation studio making a bunch of stuff off the top of their heads. They've made a couple series now. The first one was called Meta Runner, which I didn't really care for or watch through. There's another one called Sunset Paradise, which would appeal to some people, not to me. Then they made one called Murder Drones, which is the edgiest middle school original piece of fiction you have ever heard in your life, but it is so goddamn genuine, like it sticks to its guns. It does not flinch at the sight of, like, ultimate edgelord nonsense, and I can get into it. I can enjoy it because it is so fucking genuine in how much it enjoys being what it is, which is like the edgiest 6th grade girl in the world. And then they also made something recently called The Amazing Digital Circus. They've only put out a pilot. That shit has 88 million views. You've probably heard of it already. But if you haven't, I think it's cool. They're making interesting stuff, and they're clearly passionate, and that is about all I really goddamn care about. And the fact that they are able to have this high of a production budget, and this much polish, and this broad of a range of things that they can make, makes me really optimistic for the future of independent animation. This one started airing last year. It's called Bugbo. It seems to be a parody of like old Flash games. It has a little bit of mascot horror feelings mixed in, but it doesn't really focus in on it that much. It's like there's horror aspects, but you're expected to ignore them. The #1 word to associate with this series is surrealism, and if that's the sort of humor you enjoy, then you're definitely going to get a lot of mileage out of this. the main character, who is Bugbo, really powerful, and like the character who talks directly to the audience, like, do you know where to find the object? And then you have this weird spider dude who's really stupid, and then you have Gradient Joe, who knows what to do. The closest thing I could compare the series to humor-wise is Homestar Runner, but I really don't know how many of you people have seen that ancient piece of internet lore. You might recognize him from poking it at the inventory, but I mean also Bugbo's humor. It's different, it's hard, it's really hard to explain what this show is on about. I'm just gonna play some clips and move on, to be honest.
I smell mayoral election.
Hello, I am the stone merchant. What would you three like today?
I'd like your biggest stones, please, sir.
Yeah, we're building a stone structure. A stone structure? How quaint. If my biggest stones are what you desire, you must pay a hefty fee of 150 shells.
No,
Excuse me?
I'm not doing that.
Papa, we need your help. Bugbo's been bug-napped.
Sorry, I'm a little preoccupied right now.
If only we had a red brother.
Say the red brother!
We did so much today, Bugbo. We went all around the globe looking for you.
Quite impressive, yes. For that, I'd say you are deserving of a reward. 1 gold star.
Yay!
But of course, today's ordeal could have been prevented had you been more vigilant, so your reward is null and void.
Aww.
Yeah, it's hard as fuck to pitch this, to be honest. But it's something. Some people are gonna find this funny, and to those people, you're welcome. Talking about this one seems kind of weird because when you think of the name, you think, oh, everyone and their grandmother's seen Charlie the Unicorn. The fucking first one has 40 million, the second one has 50 million, the others got already into tens of millions as well. Open and shut case of early internet sensation, simple comedy. 2 insane batshit unicorns take a really nonplussed, unenthusiastic unicorn on acid trip adventures, and then he suffers in the end, right? When I was a kid and I watched this, I did not believe that Charlie the Unicorn had any deeper themes or lore, but with the release of Charlie the Unicorn, the grand finale, which is 40 minutes long, my mind was changed. Somehow it's a very sincere and well-done critique on capitalism. The lore is expanded upon, it's kind of sad, and I cared. That video only has 800,000 views. The compilation with every single episode only has 1 million. And I can't believe I'm saying only about 1 million views, but comparative to the 50 million that the earlier episodes in the series have, I think it qualifies for the I don't have a huge audience, but I would like to help signal boost it, because it was really well done. It was clearly made out of passion. And watching the entire hour compilation of the story thus far, it was an evening well spent. If you have any nostalgia for it, or you never saw any of it to begin with, either way, I think it's worth a watch. The next show I don't have a ton to say about because the show's just starting out, although he definitely has been around for a while. He started off with these, story time animation type videos that you've seen a million times, talking about random stories from his life, ideas, but he's slowly been evolving in an interesting way. Recently, he started making some experimental short films that have evolved further, and further, and further, until he's actually begun an animated series of his own, called Krugston. I can't exactly tell what's going on, but it's fun. There's only 1 episode of Krugston. There's a couple, pilot episodes that sort of key you into the lore. You don't actually know anything that's going on, but it's animated with a lot of expressiveness and detail. And it's just fun to watch. I like it. The last shit on my list to talk about is Big Top Burger by Worthy Kids. I love Worthy Kids. Worthy Kids is my favorite animator on YouTube, hands down. About a year ago, I actually made a whole video just on him. And it's not very good. It's like 8 minutes of me incoherently rambling. I premised the entire thing with, this is not a video essay, this is just stream of consciousness. Which, to be fair, this is also stream of consciousness. I never script this shit. I'm just really good at yapping. Point being, if you don't want to watch that, just go watch a video of Worthy Kids and you will love it, because he's incredible. If you want to hear my thoughts on it, feel free to get, you know, a nostalgia trip and listen to a younger me ramble worse about the same thing I love a year later. I'll put a short clip from that video here right now so you can kind of see the part about Big Top Burger, because I talk about literally everything he's ever done in that video. A lot of the comedy in this show comes from the animation. The visual comedy is just, to a degree, hitherto unknown, in my opinion. The voice acting is superb. There's a character that sounds like Raven. You know how many shonen anime took the concept of school and then made it a setting for ridiculous anime bullshit? Imagine that with like a really weird wage slave job. That's what this kind of feels like. It's not ramping up in intensity too much at this moment, but from how things are going, it feels like it'll get there. Imagine The Office plus My Hero Academia plus working at Walmart customer service. The point is, I can't recommend it enough. That was true a year ago, and it's true today. It's only gotten better with every single episode, and I really, really love that show. If you're trying to get into Worthy Kids and you're not sure if you'll like his style, I would recommend watching a video called The Wire. It is a single encapsulated video that expresses a lot of his favorite themes and creative talents. And even if you don't like Big Top Burger, I think it would be hard to dislike that kick-ass, plot-driven music video, ? He's nuts. Anyway. Also, because I gotta plug my own stuff and my friend's stuff, I am the lead producer and editor of a D&D web series called The Best Available. It's not animated, although sometimes we do have really cool animated sections because our artist goes crazy, but I don't know, I edit it. I think it's kind of fun and cool. If you like Dungeons & Dragons, you might like it. I do my best to make them short and cut out all the blubber that makes me not like watching other people's D&D series. I don't know. Watch it or not, I don't care. Bye.
Ocean man, take me by the hand, lead me to the land that you understand. Ocean man, the voyage to the corner of the globe is the real trip. Ocean man, the crust of a tan man by the sand, soaking up the thirst of the